What's up, everybody? We're back with another episode of the Everything School podcast. We got a lot to talk about today. It's been a busy weekend. I'm joined as always by Billy Derrick. Billy, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Chase. It's got college baseball heating up, got the NHL and NBA still rolling on somehow. Feels like their playoffs have been lasting for about 3 months, but no, it's good to be back on.
Yeah, it feels like those playoffs have been going on for what seems like 3 or 4 months, but we're getting to the
Yeah,
tail end of both of those playoffs. Both teams have 2 wins, the leader in the series, so could possibly be two more wins away from both sides to finish early. I want to jump right in. We had a busy weekend in terms of baseball. The
hmm
regionals were this past weekend. Tennessee wins the Clemson regional. Uh, a lot of dominoes fell their way. They had to scave off Clemson in a crazy 14 inning game, probably the craziest college baseball, if not all baseball game that I've ever seen. But I wanted to get your view. I know Vanderbilt got bounced way earlier than anybody expected, way earlier than y'all
hmm
wanted. So I was very interested to get your take on this past weekend as a Vanderbilt fan.
Yeah, it was tough. It's something that doesn't usually happen for Vandy fans. They lost back-to-back regionals for the first time in 14 years, and that's a run that's pretty unbelievable. I mean, to go through 17 straight NCAA tournament appearances, and you only lose in back-to-back regionals in 2 consecutive years twice. So it's kind of unbelievable the run that Tim Corbin has been on. And I mean, let's face it, Vandy fans have been spoiled over the last 20 years or so under Tim Corbin, and you know, Vandy people have grown accustomed to so much winning that when you lose this early in the tournament, it's tough. So, yeah, I mean they didn't hit the ball. I mean it really is. I think that's simple. I mean because the pitching was fine. I thought the pitching did enough for Vanderbilt to win that regional, but and Sunday's game was a perfect example of it. I mean Sam Leboke goes out there and gives you 5 and a third innings, only 4 hits, and I mean, they pitched great. Patrick Riley, both those guys, they pitched awesome. So, for Vanderbilt, it's tough to bounce back from, you know, a game that Oregon game where you lose 8-7 and, you got to turn right around on Sunday at 2 o'clock and try to beat a pesky Xavier team. So it's tough, but, at the same time, Vanderbilt is still an elite baseball program. And I think with Tim Corbin and the renderings that were announced, I don't think fans really have a whole lot to worry about. But again, I think some changes need to be made, whether that's a coaching change or a portal stylistic adjustment, a recruiting style shift. I think something has to change. But then again, Coach Corbin has not he hasn't been a huge proponent of change. So, when he's been at Vanderbilt, but yeah, it was tough. I mean, you look at Vanderbilt's offensive stats, and they were pretty bad. I think they were 2 for 15 with runners in scoring position, something like 3 for 21 with 2 outs over the weekend. You're not going to beat very many good teams like that, especially in the postseason. So, it's hard, especially when Enrique Bradfield goes 0 for 8 in those last couple games against Oregon and Xavier. And as Chase, in today's day and age in college baseball, you have got to have several power bats that can, kind of keep you alive with the home run. Vanderbilt only had one of those, and it was RJ Schreck. So I think that's what needs to change as well. You got to find some more power somewhere in that lineup.
Yeah, I was keeping up with the game, the first game, the Oregon game, kind of from afar while watching the Clemson Tennessee game, and I know Oregon jumped out to an early lead, and Vanderbilt kind of kept the pressure on them, and it broke out late, an 8-7 loss, close loss. I mean, both losses are by 1 run, so it's not like Vanderbilt gets absolutely wiped, wiped out of the regional. They showed some fight, and like you said, Xavier's a pesky baseball team, and there's even a weather delay. Was it the
Yeah,
Xavier game that was delayed?
it was the Xavier game. It was about a 4 hour lightning delay in and around that area, but in that area wasn't raining. I heard the first lightning strike that anybody really saw was about an hour later. So it's brutal. I mean, we were talking about it on our podcast yesterday how, um, you know, what do you do in that 4 hours as a player? I mean, you're down to your final 3 outs. That had to have been tough on them. And then you come back, and it was kind of surprising to see how uncompetitive the at bats were after a 4 hour delay. I mean, it was boom, 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 3 outs, you're done, your season's over. So it was kind of a microcosm of the whole season, just not enough competitive at bats and not enough overall offense in the lineup. You're not going to win. When you go 2 for 15 with runners in scoring position and 3 for 21 with 2 outs, there wasn't any clutch hitting. But Chase, I mean, it was the total opposite of the SEC tournament. I mean, we saw all of that in the SEC tournament. So again, that's why the SEC tournament, you can't really take too much into it. It matters, right? You got you some hardware, you got you a trophy. But again, it's a totally different game in the postseason. Vanderbilt was playing against 3 other teams that won their conference. So, it's tough, man. Postseason ball is a totally different story. You never know what can happen.
Yeah, I know. I know you said that we saw the renderings. I've got to look at the renderings. It looks nice. It looks incredible. Looks like there's a lot of great stuff moving forward. I know you said maybe some portal action, maybe a little bit of a coaching change. What one, maybe two, what are some of the things that you want to see next season from this team to kind of rebound from these last two regional losses? I know you said you have a SEC title win this past season.
Mm-hmm.
Is like you said, you can't put much stake into it because you come out the next weekend and you're way flatter than you were in the SEC tournament. So what are some of the things that you want to see more importantly going into next season to kind of get back to Omaha?
Well, number one, I want to see some health. That this pitching staff has got to get healthy. Your two horses weren't in the barn for most of the season. Carter Holton, your ace, one of the best pitchers in the country, was not able to pitch most of the year in big games. He didn't pitch at all in the postseason. Didn't see him in the late stretch of the regular season, and that's tough. I mean, your best pitcher is not pitching, and then your number two guy, Hunter Owen, wasn't healthy really much at all either. I mean, they pitched him against Oregon, but I'll admit I don't think he was 100% ready yet. Now again, I'm not blaming the coaching staff on that. You've got to send your guy out there because you kind of gave them a break for that moment to pitch in that moment. But they've got to get healthy. So I think Carter Holton is a guy that'll be back next year. Devin Futrell, their number 3 guy, will be back next year. So you've got to, and again, this isn't really a stylistic change. That's kind of a luck of the draw type thing, right? Vanderbilt needs some luck on their side with injury, and that's what really hurt them this year. They were banged up. So first, that's the first thing. Number 2, and I just talked about it, but offensively, the approach at the plate, in my mind, has not been good enough, especially in the postseason in the regional. I saw a lot of uncompetitive at bats. I saw a lot of guys with 2 strikes. They're not, they're trying to swing for the fences instead of kind of, getting down in a stance and, swinging with a 2-strike approach. So, for me, it's that. It's offensively and, also a lack of power, an extreme lack of power. I mean, you look at other SEC lineups, Tennessee, Florida, LSU, they've got 5, 6, 7 guys hitting double-digit home runs. And what do you know? They're winning more games. They're still alive. That's today's day and age of college baseball. You've got to have some power bats in that lineup. Yeah, I think their pitching's fine, Chase. I really do. I think they got to get healthy. They'll be fine on the mound next year. But offensively, that's where my concern is, right? Because if you don't make any more adjustments offensively, whether that's grabbing a few more portal guys offensively to help you out, maybe making a stylistic approach, shift offensively, you got to do something because, the last couple of years of Vanderbilt baseball offensively have not been good at all. And that's a fact. I mean, you can look at the stats. So, just the approach and finding a few power portal bats in the transfer portal that can really help you out because you've seen other SEC teams do that. And there's talent out there. There's so much talent at the mid-major level. I mean, look at Southern Miss. Look at Indiana State, right? There's some really, really good teams at the mid-major level. So I think Vanderbilt needs to try to dip into that.
Yeah, I think the way baseball is, not even just college, but I feel like the major leagues have kind of gone to this way where it's just like the NBA. The long ball is kind of what rules the sport now. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we saw it from Tennessee last year, the way they came out and hit the long ball. It didn't get them where they probably should have been, but it helps out a lot. The long ball, if you can hit, 500 home runs in a season, that's incredible, and that's going to help you go
Mm-hmm.
far.
Yeah, and it takes less pressure. It takes some pressure off your pitchers. I mean, as a pitcher, if you've got a lineup that you're kind of unsure of, you don't know what the run support is going to be for you that day. That's tough. I mean, you in your mind kind of tell yourself, I got to pitch perfect. I need to go out there and go 7 innings, 10 strikeouts, because I know I might only get 2 or 3 runs across. So offense helps the pitching. Pitching obviously helps the offense, and you've got to have that offense behind to support. You just do. You have to, because if you don't, you see games like this with Vanderbilt. You see a 2-1 loss to Xavier, right? That should never happen. Vanderbilt as the 1 seed should never happen. Should never lose to to a 3 seed. A Xavier team. The credit to Xavier, that's a good pesky team. But yeah, you're right, Chase. I mean, you've got to have it. It's something you have to have, especially in today's day and age. I think earlier in the Corbin era, Vanderbilt was a team that didn't have a ton of power, but there were a lot of teams that only had a couple guys hitting double digit home runs. Now you've got power up and down the lineup. A lot of these SEC teams, so it's kind of adapt or die. I mean, and Vandy's dying right now. Not literally. I don't think the program's dying, but theoretically, right, in that phrase, adapt or die. Vanderbilt's closer to that die side offensively in this power game of college baseball.
Yeah, it's definitely sports in general now is, I feel like it's adapt or die. Even with, we look at football with the no huddle offense, a lot of teams are having to go to that because the pro style is a little old.
Yep.
So you're gonna
Yep.
have to, just like the long ball in football, it always, it's definitely something to have in your back pocket. Quickly, I just want to get your thoughts on what you think Oregon looks like moving into the supers. I know they come out, it's the first time they've been in the supers since I think 2011. So just quickly your thoughts on them.
Yeah, Oregon's a really good team. They're all offensively. That's another team that they've got, several guys hitting over double-digit home runs. They got a kid named Tanner Smith who hit one against Vandy. Really good player. Plays left field. They're an athletic team. They've got a kid that plays just like Ichiro. I can't pronounce his name. I'm not going to try to, but he was a stud all weekend. I mean, he got on base and he'd steal second. He would be halfway to third and then run back. His leadoffs were crazy. So they're a similar team to Vandy. They've got a little bit more power. I think they're a better hitting team than Vandy. But I love that Oregon team, man. I mean, they get to go home to Eugene, play an Oral Roberts team that is obviously trying to get to Omaha as an upset Cinderella type team. But I like that matchup for Oregon, and I've got them advancing, and I think they could do some damage. Man, that offense is really good. Pitching, that's my concern. Maybe in Omaha for them, the pitching depth. But offensively, man, they can hang with anybody, and it might get ugly at home this weekend against Oral Roberts. Oral Roberts is a good team, but man, Oregon can really hit the ball.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun to see if the Ducks can get to Omaha. It'll be fun to see the Ducks in Omaha. I know they're one of
Yeah.
those teams that have I think less than 5 appearances, or right around 5 appearances in Omaha. So it'll be fun to
Mm-hmm.
see if they can get back. The Clemson regional also took place this past weekend. It was crazy. It was, we saw a lot of big upsets. Auburn doesn't get out of their regional. Vanderbilt doesn't get out of theirs. Tennessee, I don't want to say luck, but a lot of their dominoes that they needed to fall their way really fell their way. I know in postseason that's just kind of how it goes. I know you get a luck of the draw, luck of the dominoes. The Tennessee Clemson game, like I said earlier, one of the craziest baseball games I think I've ever witnessed. It was awesome. Uh, Tennessee down 4-1. Uh, at one point, even down 4-2 in the top of the ninth, Zane Denton hits a 3-run home run, similar to Wright State, down to our last strike, down to the last out. Zane Denton comes up big and hits the go ahead home run. And I thought, Tennessee fans are celebrating. They're like, that's it. We're 3 outs away. Then it comes out to 1 out away. Clemson scores a RBI double in the bottom of the ninth to send it to 10. And the 10th, I thought it was over. I thought, Burns had He had hit 100 pitches. He wasn't coming out. He told Vitello, "I don't want to come out. I'm finishing this." Bases loaded, one out. There's no way Tennessee should get out of it, and they roll into a double play. Questionable call at first to call the runner safe. And if you're on the Clemson fan base, you're elated that double play is called safe. You were excited,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden you go to the review booth and he's out. Tennessee moves on. We survive. We had another review. There was a questionable ejection in extras as well. And somehow Tennessee, Maui Ahuna gets a scores from first in the bottom of the or top of the 14th to secure a 6-5 win. It was nuts. I don't know if I know Vanderbilt was playing around the same time, so I don't know how much you got to see of the craziness that happened, but it was great. It was awesome. It was a fun game. It was exciting. That's what
Yeah,
we
it's yeah, that's why we love college baseball, man. I mean, how can you not be romantic about this game? It is just unbelievable what happened in Clemson, South Carolina this past weekend. I was actually in Murfreesboro for most of the day for a bachelor party, and I was driving back. I made sure I left in time to get back in time for the Vandy game, and I'm driving back to the Nashville area from Murfreesboro, and I've got the Tennessee game on my phone, and I'm sitting there saying Clemson's got it. I mean, it looks like Clemson's going to hang on, but in the back of my mind, Chase, I knew this Tennessee team wasn't going to go away quietly. I mean, you could tell Clemson was. You could almost feel, and I was watching it. I could see just the feeling of it. I mean, Clemson it's like they didn't want to play those final 3 innings, but Tennessee did. And Tennessee they were the aggressor late in that game, and Clemson kind of felt like they kind of sat back and let Tennessee, take the game. And I know it went into extras, but yeah, Zane didn't, man, that's a moment that Tennessee fans are going to remember forever. I mean, that won the regional. That hit, I think that hit. I know Clemson tied it back up, but after that Zane Denton home run in that Tennessee dugout, you've got to believe those players were like, okay, we're winning this game. We're going to find a way to win this game. The funny part of it is Clemson came back and tied it at 5, but I still think there was a lot of belief in that dugout. I mean, what a performance from Chase Burns! My goodness. I mean, the dude's a stud. I mean, he just grabs the ball and you know, like you said, Vitello was going to take the guy out. And I think every Tennessee fan agreed. Like, let's get Burns out. We got to get out of this inning. But he gets out of that inning, and man, yeah, we were. I was sitting in the outfield at Vanner in the left field bleachers of the Vandy game. We're all watching it. I mean, I can't tell you how many Vandy fans had it on their phone in the outfield. And man, but honestly, credit to Tennessee. I mean, that Clemson team is really, really, really good. Like that's the number 4 team in the country right there. Um, so yeah, obviously a lot of luck. I think the ball bounced the right way for Tennessee, but they took advantage of it. And man, what a night for Tennessee. And now they head to Hattiesburg, Mississippi, play a solid Southern Miss team, and it's going to be fun to watch that one. That's super as well. So just like all the other supers, but man, this is why you love baseball. I mean, the college baseball doesn't get any better this time of year.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was a great weekend. Clemson getting knocked out by Charlotte the next day kind of surprised me a lot. It made me feel a little bit more comfortable to have to face Charlotte instead of Clemson on Sunday night. But it's like you said, we're going to Hattiesburg, Mississippi this weekend. I know a lot of Tennessee fans were upset that we're not hosting, but I think it's fine. I think you're going to go into Southern Miss. I know a lot of people are trying to parallel it with Ole Miss's run last year, so maybe we get a little bit of luck there. But I'm excited. I think this team is rolling. Christian Moore had a fantastic weekend this past weekend at the plate, so it's gonna be exciting. Southern Miss is 45-18 on the season. Southern on a pushover. They won the Auburn regional. They beat Auburn and Samford, and then Penn 11-2 to win their regional. So it's it's getting down to the nitty gritty. We're getting down to the final few, basically the final few weeks. I feel like of college baseball. So see if Tennessee can get back to Omaha and see how much noise they can make if they get there. Um, gonna quickly transition to the finals talk. The NBA Finals, the Nuggets, after last night, another dominant performance, take a 2-1 series lead. Jokic dropped 31, 21, and 10. It's his third 30-point triple double of the playoffs, which is unheard of. Jamal's helping him out. Drops 34 last night. It's just this team. Whoa.
You good?
Hello.
Hey, you got me?
Yeah, well, that was wild. A little
What
bit of,
happened?
I don't know. My screen just went completely black.
Oh, really?
That was wild. Yeah, and you're in a different format now. So sweet. Okay, so a little bit of technical difficulties here, but it's fine.
Okay.
Just gonna move right along. Like I was
Here we
saying,
go.
Jamal Murray dropped 34 last night, kind of helping him out. This team, when Jokic, this team has so many killers, so many weapons. Miami, now faced with a must-win game, can't go down 3-1. So it's going to be interesting moving forward. I don't know if you've gotten to watch a whole lot of NBA finals. I haven't got to watch a lot of the games, but kept up from afar. But Denver just seems to, they just seem to have this in hand. I know Miami stole a game in Denver, but I mean they're playing so well. It's going to be hard for them not to win the series.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for Miami. I think it was really big for them to get that game 2 win. In Denver, because now, I mean, you steal one in Denver, that series tied at 1, and no matter what happens, in Miami, obviously you'd like to get one in Miami, but worst case scenario, you're down 3-1, you're still in the series, you still got a shot. Um, but yeah, I'm with you, Chase. This Denver team is just too good. I mean, they haven't. Nobody's matched up with them all year. I mean, the Suns. I thought that would have been a good matchup, and I think some of those games were good matchups. But I mean, the Nuggets. They have been one of the more dominant teams in NBA history. I think. And Nikola Jokic is an absolute freak. You put Murray in there. I mean, Gordon, a guy down there that works the high low with Jokic really well. I haven't been able to watch a whole lot of it. Um, I don't know. There's something about the NBA that I think has lost a little bit of its luster. I'll watch, like I watched a little bit last night, but it's not like it was for me, uh, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, where I was glued, man. I mean, those Warriors Cavs finals, I was glued. Um, I just think part of me thinks the Nuggets, they're going to win in 5 or 6. I think so. Yeah, it's kind of what we all expected, but I think for Miami, man, I mean, don't sleep on them. I mean, I know I'm talking about a lot about the Nuggets, but for the Heat, you never know about this team, man. I mean, they just Jimmy Butler talked about the we don't give a shit mindset. We don't really care like that. That fits them perfectly. So, yeah, it'll be fun. But I do like Denver ultimately to win this series.
I think Miami has the intangibles and the kind of the grit to pull the series to 7 if it comes to it. But it's going to be hard. This next game, game 4, is must win. You absolutely cannot go down 3-1 to the Nuggets. I mean, we've seen it before, 3-1 comebacks. LeBron did it a couple years ago in that Warrior series, but it's just this team is a little bit different. I feel like it's just it's going to be interesting to see what Miami does to kind of change how they approach this series. I know Tyler Hero seems to be getting ready to come back. I know he's healing from his broken hand. He's supposed to come back this past game. I don't think it happened. So, with him back
I
at full
thought they
strength.
said I thought they said he was supposed to come back before the whole series.
Yeah,
I
they were
thought there were some.
talking. There had been some talk that maybe game 1 or 2, but I think it keeps getting pushed back.
Yeah,
So
that's a shame because I mean, if they get him back, that's a totally different story. At
yeah,
that point, and that's another aspect of this with the Heat. They've done all this without Hero, which is unbelievable.
yeah, I think it. I'm interested to see when he comes back how he plays. I know broken hand's a little hard. I feel like for me it would be a hard injury to overcome shooting wise. But if he comes
Yeah,
back at full strength, that's going to be a good get for them because that's just more offense to compete with the weapons of Denver. Um,
yeah.
South Florida, I mean, South Florida is kind of in trouble as the Florida Panthers are down 2-0 in just absolute dominant fashion from Vegas. Comes out game one, 5-2. Game two the other night. I mean, it wasn't even close. 7-2. Bobrovsky getting yanked after giving up a 4-0 lead. I think Florida has hit the ceiling. I think the Panthers have completely hit that wall that teams like them seem to hit around this time. Nashville hit the wall a couple years ago. Montreal hit the wall
Mhm.
in 2021. It just seems like they've kind of walked off the cliff, the proverbial cliff.
Yeah, it's hard, man. I like how you brought up the Preds that year, and that's what this reminds me of. Um, you know, I don't know. I don't think they'll get swept. I think they'll probably win. They'll definitely win one at home, and then they might win both. But then again, that doesn't mean a whole lot. I don't think like if you tie the series, I still think Vegas, the way they're playing has the advantage. But yeah, I mean Bobrovsky, for him to play as well as he has in the playoffs so far, and then play that poorly in a game for a Panthers fan, that's got to be a bad feeling because he's your guy. Like he's the guy that has carried you this far in the playoffs. But yeah, it has reminded me of the Preds, where it's hard, man. I mean, how many series is it? Four. You got to win four series
Yeah,
to
four
win the
series.
Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
I mean, and what? It's almost a 2 month period. I mean, which is crazy. So that's a lot to ask of a team. You got to have a lot of depth. You've got to have, you know, obviously a great coaching staff. You've got to have reliable goaltending play. That's what the Panthers have had, but not in this series from Bobrovsky. He hasn't been good at all. So yeah, kind of weird to see how bad the Panthers are playing. But Vegas looks scary. I mean, Vegas looks. How about them and their start to their franchise? Unbelievable. I mean, for them to, they won. Am I wrong? They won the Stanley Cup, right?
They have not. They went in 2018 and lost to
They
Washington in five,
okay, that's right. They
but
went in 2018, but for
they've
them to
been
get
a
there,
they've
for
been
them
a
to get
franchise
there
for 6
again.
years. Oh, sorry. They've been a franchise for
No, you're
six
good.
years, real quick. They've been a franchise 6 years, been to the conference finals 4 times.
There, that's what I was trying to find. I mean, like what a start for their franchise. So, yeah, Vegas, they just look better. I was watching a little bit, a few days ago, and Florida, it does look like they've hit that wall a little bit. But again, you never know. I mean, you go back home, you could be a totally different team, and the Panthers, I very well could tie this series. So, and I expect that, but the way the series started, it's hard to believe the Panthers win this series.
Yeah, I think Vegas, like you said, they've just been so good as a franchise. You can't ask for a better 6 years, first 6 years to a franchise. They had a really good expansion draft. They got lucky with that kind of the draw that they had for the expansion draft. But this
Mm-hmm.
team has just been everything that they've needed and wanted. This offense has been rolling. Jonathan Marchessault has 10 goals in 11 games. He didn't score in the entire first round, and he didn't score until game 3 of Edmonton in the second round.
Mm,
And they've played 11 games since then, and he scored in all of them but one. And he scores
that's
uh,
crazy.
2 nights ago to make it to give add another goal. So he is definitely, in my eyes, if Vegas wins the series, he's your Conn Smythe winner. He's your playoff
Yeah,
MVP. It's hard to argue. 10 goals in 11 games. That's what you need.
yeah, he's been great, man. I mean, every time I look at it, one of the highlights, it's Jonathan Marchessault getting a goal. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Former Florida Panther too. So that's another
Oh
fun
man,
little fact is
we'll
he's
see
got
what
a
kind of we'll see what kind of welcome he gets back for games 3 and 4.
yeah, I'm excited about game 3 or 4. We'll see what Florida does to rebound. Bob has to come with his best because Vegas has started out hot. So
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. The Stanley Cup Finals, like you said, 4 rounds. It's the hardest playoffs, in my opinion. It's the best
Yeah,
playoffs. So it's a grueling time. And we'll see how Florida bounces back. I think they can do it. I think they'll get it. They'll stretch it out to 6 or 7. But Vegas right now has shown up, has shown out, flexing their muscle a little bit, and they're one game away from a 3-0 series lead that would seem almost impossible to climb out of if you're a Florida Panthers fan. Yeah, both
yeah,
South Florida is in trouble.
yeah, both of them. And I think this week was supposed to be a really good week for them. But um, you got Miami down 2-1. You got Florida Panthers down 0-2. But could you imagine? I mean, what if Miami ties the series at 2 and the Panthers tied the series at 2? I mean, what a week that would be. So you
Man,
still got potential. You still got potential here, but um, who knows? It's good for the city of Miami and kind of that South Florida area, but I don't think it has gone the way a lot of the people down there were expecting. I think they were getting ready for a big party this week, but it hasn't worked out that way. But yeah, it's cool. I think with Denver and Vegas, they're kind of showing that they're the better team so far, right? The Nuggets let one slip away, and Vegas has been just on point. I mean, you talked about Marchessault. I mean, the way he's playing, give him the Conn Smythe now. I mean, the guy is on a tear. So, yeah, it's been fun though. The atmosphere's been great. I mean, both cities, Florida and out in Vegas, and then Miami and Denver. It's always fun when these correlate. These two series correlate together. So it's like we got something to watch every night, which is never a bad thing.
both Florida teams are kind of on a Cinderella run, like we've stated before. Florida gets in the last game of the season. Miami is an 8 seed who lost their first playing game. So if you're a Miami fan, South Florida fan, you're happy that your teams, despite all odds, have made it this far. And like you said, it would be
Mm-hmm.
incredible if both series even up at 2-2. Don't count South Florida out. I think both teams have the grit and the willpower to keep both of these series going at a great pace. We got to see how Miami bounces back, how Jimmy bounces back. Got to see how Florida can Chuck kind of catch heat again. Can Bob rebound after some tough games? In game 3 in hockey, from Bob's perspective, once you have this bad of a game, the next game usually for great goalies is a shutout or just a great
Mm-hmm.
performance. So I
Yeah.
think you can see that from Bob in this next game, and they'll need it. And if he does that, they have a chance of getting back in this series. So
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, Bobrovsky is a guy. I think he can heat back up again. You know what I mean? As a goaltender, you mentioned it. You're going back home. You're probably more comfortable, in front of the net at home. And Vegas can't. I mean, they can't play this well again, back to back games, can they? I mean, the way they've been playing, it's almost like it's too good to be true. But I could be wrong. Could be eating crow after tonight. But it'll be interesting. I would be willing to bet that the Panthers get back on track tonight. And in front of their home crowd's been awesome. But yeah, Bobrovsky, if he doesn't play well, they typically don't win. So I mean, they've got to have Bobrovsky at a high level, or else you can kind of kiss their chances goodbye.
yeah, game 3 is tonight. We'll see how Florida decides to bounce back, or if Vegas continues their Death Star of a playoff run. Miami, I think the game is either probably tomorrow or Saturday, but we'll see how they can bounce back. But I think that's just about gonna do it for us today. We've had a great show, had a little snafu in between, but that's just more entertainment for everybody. Um, regionals, super regionals are this weekend, so we'll get to talk about Tennessee, how they perform next week. Hopefully they're still, hopefully they've punched their ticket to Omaha. We get to talk about if has Florida rebounded or has Vegas potentially. I mean, they should if Vegas sweeps, they should have the cup by the time we meet next week.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
both we could have two champions by the time we meet next week, or we could be talking about some absolute, upset and absolute Cinderella storylines heading into next week. So Billy, it's
Here
been
we go.
great to have you on again this week. We'll get to talk next week, and it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun weekend.
It's gonna be a blast. I can't wait. Love it, Chase. Thanks for having me on again, brother.
Yes, sir. We'll see y'all next week.